I'm your host, Edwin Desamour. Welcome to another episode of the Domino Dialogues. Today, we took the show on the road. We are in Harrisburg, the capital. Speaking of representing, when folks say you need to represent, I'm sitting here with two trendsetters, state representatives, Danilo Burgos.
Thank you, Edwin. I'm excited to be on your show. I'm excited to speak to your audience and have a great Domino Dialogue.
And also at the table, José Giral.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
All right, fellas, let's get this show on the roll. We're going to grab our set of dominoes and prepare to lose, because I know you came here already talking smack.
I came to win.
All right, let's make it happen.
Who's going to keep score?
The host.
The host?
I guess we both might lose today. You count.
Yeah. Let's see what happens.
First of all, I just want to say it's an honor to be at the table with both of you. It was walking into the building, just walking up these steps, is a great sense of pride to know that we have representatives here, representatives that look like folks from our community, which is amazing and just powerful. And knowing both of you personally, so I just want to say I'm just so proud and honored, not just to have you on the show, but and safe to say as a friend. For those who don't know about politics, right? A lot of times people see you when you come out, you guys always ask to take pictures, come on out, show your face, say how you doing. But a lot of folks don't really know what goes behind closed doors and what goes on at the Capitol, what goes on in your office back in Philadelphia. What does your day look like? What does your job look like?
There's a lot of moving components to this, right? Being an elected official. One is we vote on state laws. We introduce and we vote on state laws, right? We also do constituent service back home, right? In the district. We have a lot of people that are low-income folks that we do rent rebates, we do LIHEAP, all different types of programs, right? And we also have to do research on certain legislations that we, that we have to introduce. We also have to vote on the budget, which is very important. Last year it was $53 billion. So imagine, that's a big budget that we have to actually look at and see how we're going to bring resources back to our districts, and we also do resolutions. And what's a resolution? Resolution is basically like an order. Like we want to recognize someone, we do a resolution. We want to do a study on certain issue that comes up in our districts or statewide. We introduce the resolutions and we have to vote on these resolutions and these bills. So that's part of what we do.
You mentioned sources, right? Resources, bringing resources back to our community. Is that a fight sometimes to bring resources?
It's a constant fight because you're competing against other counties. And for example, for us, this is the first time that we have the largest representation of Latinos in the State House. So we're trying to bring resources to our respective districts. But Jose and I constantly look at things collectively and say, okay, where are the organizations we can help out together that benefit the greater Latino community in Philadelphia, not just the 180th or 197. It's what's the best approach for the overall community, not just for a specific group or one person. But also we look at what's going on in Allentown. We collaborate with our members in Allentown, here in Harrisburg, which is Dauphin County, Luzerne County, Lancaster, Reading, and York. In York, we've seen one of the largest Latino growths per capita because of there's this industry, there's manufacturing going on in the county of York, and a lot of agriculture. But you're not just to have people that work in agriculture or manufacturing companies. You have plenty of entrepreneurs, not in York and across Pennsylvania. So while we're guiding the conversation for what we need back home, we're also guiding the conversation for what goes on in the state as far as Latino community, from Philadelphia all the way to Erie, Pennsylvania.
Now, I want to talk about a myth or a stereotype. Are all Latinos Democrat?
No. Most of them are Democrats, but not all Latinos. To answer your question, no, they're not all Democrats.
Now, how often do you find yourself working with folks across the aisle?
Every day.
Every day, yeah. You have to. One thing about Pennsylvania that's unique, right? We have a split legislature. And what does that mean? That means we have a Republican Senate and a Democratic House, right? So, and then you have a Democratic governor, right? So what does that mean, right? You know, to simplify it, basically, you have to work across the aisle to be able to get something done. At times, that's difficult. You know, not a lot of states are like that. We're unique. I think there's like maybe 1 or 2 other states that are similar to us to have a split legislature. And that's really, really difficult. And then on top of that, on the House side, it's 102, 101. 102 Democrats and 101 Republicans. So imagine that's a small margin right there that you have to, in order to introduce something, you know, you have to get the majority in your side, you know, to vote on it. And then once you send it over to the Senate, right, it goes through the same process in order for it to go to the governor, you know. To better understand how we do things here in, you know, our roles, basically, you got to understand how government works, right? And how does government works? You know, you introduce a bill, you research a bill, right? Like my job, I research a bill, right? I got to make sure the language is correct, right? So it could survive a legal challenge, right? I have to introduce it, right? Once I introduce it, then you have members like Burgos, other members that will co-sponsor the bill, right? Once they co-sponsor the bill, then it goes in front of a committee, right? It gets either amended in committee or it gets voted out. Then it goes to the floor, gets called for a vote. If it survives that vote, it goes back, it goes to the Senate side, right? And it goes through the same process there, right? And if it passes on the floor, then it finally goes to the governor to sign. If it doesn't survive either process, you can't introduce that bill. If it gets voted down, you can't introduce it that same legislative session. You have to wait till next time you get run for re-election. And remember, we run every 2 years. So if we don't it's hard to get stuff done in 2 years. You know what I mean? That's why, you know, like most of us, you know, we should be here a little bit, you know, in order to make sure that most of the projects, when you talk about funding projects, right? Sometimes we could fund a project this year, right? But it doesn't actually break ground until like 6 years from now, you know, to the funding gets in place and, you know.
But you're planting the seed.
Exactly, yeah.
Right before we got started earlier, we were talking about how do we live? How do we function? How do we turn it off? And I was just thinking while you were speaking, like, how do you guys turn it off? Because you're constantly on go and you got 2 years.
Yeah.
2 years to do all of this. A couple of questions. Well, I got a few questions during the show. How do you stay connected to the streets?
I still have the same cell phone number when I was a staffer in City Hall. When I used to run the Dominican Grocers Association, I stay committed by visiting barbershops, walking my district, walking my community, and being accessible. I turn off my phone like around 10 o'clock at night, which the doctor said I should turn it off for earlier, but it's just that growing up, having the privilege of growing up the community that I have to get the privilege to represent, my community doesn't have that luxury. We've been disconnected from the political process for quite a while at the state level, and now it's 10 times full. Latino community is growing, not just in Philadelphia but across the state, and our problems are real-time problems. It's not like running a nonprofit, which is a 9 to 5. For us, this is 24/7, and turning it off is not a luxury that we have, but we try to turn it off. But there's sometimes Jose and I are talking at 12 o'clock at night because something happened in the neighborhood that requires our attention, and communicating with our council person, communicating even sometimes with the governor. You have to pace yourself, and you have to give yourself one day that you barely touch your phone, because otherwise you'll burn out.
You know, we live in the community, right? We shop in the community. We eat in the community.
Why is it important to shop in the community?
That's basically how you support local businesses.
And you eat healthier when you eat from Maria's restaurant, from Joandra's, so from Delicias. You're eating healthier. Provocon, yeah. You eat healthier from
Tierra.
And guess what? By today's prices, you get the same $20 will get you probably more food at a mom and pop business than at McDonald's or Wendy's.
No, going through both of your bios, I've noticed that both of you had experience with business. Yeah. You know, is that one of your priorities, right? You know, while you're representing boosting the economy in our community? with that experience of being a business?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we bring that to Harrisburg, that experience. Yeah.
And amplifying the contributions of mom and pop businesses,
Yeah.
because they don't have the luxury of having a lobbyist here like Wawa or Sheetz or McDonald's or those corporations that are proliferated throughout our community, that don't just, they pay, for the most part, they pay a minimum wage to our community members. But if you're an entrepreneur, you set your wage. You decide how much you're going to make, how much your business is going to work, because you want to work twice as hard till you get to a certain point. And bringing that perspective to City Hall, to policy making, to the Capitol, and to policy making, it's extremely important, because otherwise, who will listen to a bodeguero or a tow truck driver or a mechanic shop owner or a hairstylist? Is bringing that micro perspective to these walls where policy is made.
This is just me, right? I feel as though folks are not educated enough to understand each role, right? So my question is, how much did you know about politics growing up? Because as a kid, I didn't know much, but I did know that voting was important, right? I remember walking with my mom when she went to go vote. And I remember her being so strict. Mom, who did you vote for? She was like, none of your business, right? Because she was so private about that. But that was something that she had. But I remember it was big, me growing up in the community. Are we in danger of losing that? Or are we keeping that? Or if we are losing that, how do we talk about the urgency of how important it is? Because I know right now in the day and time we're living today, folks are frustrated, right? Yeah. And it's like, what's going on in the world, period, right? And they're like, wow, like my vote doesn't matter, but it still does, right? Does. Can you speak on that a little bit, both of you?
Early on in encounter with politics that I can remember was Senator Tartaglione and Carlos Mata coming to my mother's store, campaigning. That was and then I fast forward to years later, I got involved through the Dominican Grocery Association. I started my cousins and I started a civic organization, and we got involved because of the issues that were affecting bodegueros at the time, which was the city was not interacting with business owners, wasn't delivering any technical services, and the murder of my uncle and 3 other business owners had been unsolved, Dominican business owners. And we started organizing and demanding what our community needed. And at that time, Ben Ramos was the state rep for the area that advocated, and Sara that works in your office, advocated a lot on behalf of my family and other families that the police department had no interaction with or just had no communication with the family what the case was going. But fast forward to today, this is our moment in time. We must remember the stories that our grandparents told us as far as why they came to America, why they came to Philadelphia. It was my family's first opportunity to buy a home, to buy their own business and the building where they lived at for many years.
Which is the American dream.
It's just the American dream.
Now, I notice in both of your offices that you have in Philadelphia, people come in for requests. Yeah. What is it that you make sure, because I do know for a fact that you both make sure that even if it's not a state issue, because I know people come about their personal problems, something's going on, and you could easily be like, listen, we don't handle that. But you are in both offices, your teams are making sure no one's on the phone, we're not hanging up the phone. Come on in, or we're going to point you in the right direction. What drives you to still do that?
My office, basically, we're high volume. Like, we get a lot of walk-in traffic. We get a lot of phone calls. I think my office is like one of the highest in Philadelphia for constituent service, right? And what we do is, right, besides take care of the state issues, we try to send people to, because what's happening in Philly is that some people don't understand the difference between local office, city services, state services, and federal services, right? Your congressman, your state representative, your state senator, and the city council people. So they come into our office because it's a neighborhood office, right? Yeah. So they come in to get help, right? And we try to, if we can't help them, we send them to the place where they can get help. You know what I mean? So that's really important to us,
So being at the Lighthouse, which I'm proud of being executive director, but my team, right, knows both of your staffers by name. All your staffers in office, right? Because we have to make referrals. We need to say, hey, you know what? Call this person. And it's always a good, I just want to say that it's a great follow-up for that. I heard the need, right? There was a need for you to step up. We talked about how sometimes folks don't know the difference between, state, city. Are schools doing enough to educate our young folks when it comes to the political world?
I think it's not just the school's responsibility. Obviously, they play a big role. I think, like nonprofits, our offices, I think it's up to the whole community, basically, to come together as a village, right? And to educate folks, especially the younger folks, of how things are done, politically. Let's say Concilio, Lighthouse, Esperanza, impact services. Like, everybody got to play a role in this.
No, I like that answer because it's about accountability also, like us as a village. Is there anything right now that if you could change, do you see there as an issue when it comes to our education?
We don't adequately fund our schools across Pennsylvania. We put too much in some areas and not enough in others. But yet, like in communities and ours, we'd rather spend more money in policing than in preventive measures to break those cycles of lack of education, or even, like, from my perspective, growing up, I was told by one of my educators that once I finished high school, I better move out my parents' house or get ready to have a job at McDonald's or one of those places like that, because I wasn't going to go to college. Even for me, it's extremely important to just break those stereotypes. And it's unfortunate that in 2026, we still have those stereotypes where people in my community, in our state, believe that they're not going to go far. And that's my enemy. Lack of education, crime, and the lack of jobs. My enemy is not Representative Giral, is not another state rep. My enemy are the socioeconomic issues that we have in the 197 and across Pennsylvania. And until we attack those core problems and understand that it's an economic problem, not just saying, oh, those people over there need to get locked up because those were the most criminals. Well, what if you apply those areas in the most? I mean, for years, our areas were the ones that were allowed to have the largest open drug markets in the country. And that was never addressed. It's little big issues like that need to get tackled,
and that's why
be addressed.
And that's why representation is important.
Yeah, because we bring the perspective of our communities right here inside these walls, and have the empathy to understand that a Somerset County or Fayette County, who have the same social demographical issues, but they're all white people in those areas, but yet they have the same rates of drug addiction, if not worse. But somehow the media or the sentiment is Philadelphia is the problem. Yeah. Those people in North Philadelphia are the problem. That's not the fact. It's a problem.
It's a stereotype.
But it's a stereotype. It's a problem that we need to tackle it collectively. And I strongly believe that the way you do that is through education, and not through more incarcerating or being stronger on crime, which has been proven time after time that strategy does not work. We need to be intentional in educating our children and how to respect one another, how to have empathy. If we go on about not respecting one another, we're not going to get nowhere. We're going to end up with people believing that their vote doesn't matter.
We want to encourage people to get involved, whether it's on the city level, federal level, and the state level, or just in the community, with nonprofits, because this is not for everybody, right? Everybody's got to find their niche in the community.
I always like to say, be the change that you want to see in your community. I mean, it's easy to point a finger, say that person is not doing enough, but what are you doing?
Yeah.
Are you coming out to vote every 6 months?
If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, right? Yeah. You hear that all the time, right?
The number one biggest factor, that difference between, I'll say, Northeast Philadelphia and North Philadelphia, is that we might have the same amount of population, but we don't have the same outcomes when it comes to the polls. And that gives any other community, whether it's Asian, Latino, African-American, or white, that community votes more than this community.
When you look at elections, right, and you look at the numbers, right, you got the people that voted for one candidate, the person that voted for another candidate, and the people that didn't vote, right? And people look at that number, the people that don't vote, they want people not to vote. That's okay. Like, there's a certain, me personally, I'd rather people get involved and vote. But, when you look at it as a strategist, a political strategist, they look at the people that vote for one candidate, people that vote for another candidate, and the people that don't vote. And they look forward to some people not voting at times, right? And our community is one of them. They rather us not vote. You know, the more we vote, the more they look at that as a threat, right? So that's the big message that, you know, that I send out. And, you know, there's no excuse to, you know, like in our community, this is a stereotype. Oh, yo no voy a votar por esta persona, yo no voy a, porque ninguno sabe nada, ninguno vale nada, right? And then you're like, okay, let's just say that that's the truth, right? There's also questions, there's ballot questions that get put on there, right? That affect the community. Right?
Raise your taxes.
You know, whether you take out a $1 billion loan for this or a reconstruction project or even to waive your right in certain cases, right? Those questions are there. If you don't like the candidates, that's one thing, right? But you could vote for your community, right? So there's no excuse for people not to vote.
You know what it reminds me of, as you both were speaking? When you try to ignore that bill, you don't pay that bill, but sooner or later, you're going to have to pay that bill and it gets bigger. I look at not voting the same way. The more you feel as though, it doesn't matter.
Eventually, you're going to have to pay interest and penalties on your future, right?
Hold on. That's a copy cool right there. I'm sorry. Now that's what we call a copy cool. Yeah. Can you repeat that one more time?
I don't you got to get it right there.
You're gonna
eventually you pay for it. At the end,
you know, pay penalties and
interest, but eventually in your future.
Yeah. That's a copy cool moment, and I really enjoyed that piece right there and that part of the conversation on how important. This is the reason why we wanted to really do this. With Somos Society is just about, we do come from people who are educated. We do come from people who work hard, you know, and there are certain circumstances that threw certain folks into certain predicaments, but it's easy for our community to get labeled a certain way. And to see that you two are out here fighting to change those labels is a whole nother level. But to see how you're fighting, I'm hoping that folks that are watching this understand that, okay, if they have your back, you need to have theirs. So what does that mean? When there's a town hall meeting, you need to show up. Yeah. And that's very important because I feel as though folks are saying, well, I'm not going down there. And I do understand there's certain folks or organizations that come in and take advantage of the community so they get desensitized. I just went for this for nothing. But you still have to fill it out. You still have to find out what's going on. So if you want someone to push a legislation, get a bill passed, it's important for you to be informed and to be a part of that. Did you ever have those moments where you just felt like, you know what, hell with this, or you just wanted to quit or question why are you doing this? And if you did, how did you pick yourself back up and not become desensitized?
I have moments like that all the time. And you know what? I think about my community, the needs of my community and the folks in my community, and that's what lifts me up.
Look forward, don't look back, and learn from your mistakes. Someone actually says thank you for something your team did or something you did that made that person's life a little bit better. Or you get a binder of letters from a program saying thank you from kids from your district. My grandfather always used to say, he who doesn't appreciate the little things will never appreciate the big things in life.
Well, your grandfather just answered a question I was about to ask, right? Because I remember when you first stepped into this role, one of the biggest things you were big on, especially with me, was like, hey, let me know when you're ready to take a group of kids out here.
When I was growing up in North Philly, every time we see someone in a suit is because someone was shot or someone had robbed someone or someone killed or going to court, right? Yeah. Like you didn't, as a Latino young man, you didn't see anybody in a suit until you were either going to CJC for whatever reason, or you were being interrogated. Yeah. Because something happened on the block.
So most of those kids in our community, that'll be the last time they'll be here, right? And they need to see their representative here to try to inspire those kids to feel that there's something bigger than North Philly, right?
That's another conversation me and Eric was having also. He was like, man, was this your first time, second time? And we could count our visits here, maybe on one hand.
You should make a public service announcement, right?
Yeah.
If people see this video, right, and they want to visit the Capitol, I think they should, contact our offices, right?
There we go.
And
we'll make sure you get the VIP treatment.
Yeah. And we will love that. We actually love to,
we encourage it.
Yeah, we encourage kids to come, especially the kids. Parents are welcome too, obviously, but schools, contact our offices. We can make it happen, right? And we'll love to greet them here.
This is a whole nother level. Instead of just taking them, it's all good for the Phillies game or the Eagles game or a basketball game or the zoo. But coming out here, you never know what type of seed you're going to plant in your child. You know, $37, $38, I was looking at the train ticket to get here, right? But you have 2 state representatives here on a Domino Dialogues encouraging our viewers to come on out. Make it a family day. Make it a family trip. It's next level stuff. I know I'm going to take you guys up on it. You know, I know I work with a lot of kids, but I have boys of my own. You know, they're men now, young men, but I want them to come on out to experience that, because I like to have conversations with my sons on a whole nother level, not just on, you know, sports or music or a movie that we saw, but to come on up here with my sons to walk around and then maybe just sit around and eat and say, hey, how do you feel about this? Plus, it is beautiful, too. Yeah, we were looking at the scenery outside. Speaking of history, who was the first Latino ever in the Capitol?
Germán Quiles.
Yeah.
For one term, what I've heard was that people thought he was white.
You know, even though he did one term, even though they thought he was white, how important was that?
Monumental.
I mean, as
he paved the way.
From what I've studied from the Puerto Rican community and from Latino community, it's like that was extremely proudful for the Puerto Rican community, because out of that came other Puerto Rican movements in North Philadelphia that produced El Concilio, ACE, Congreso, other Latino organizations that we have in the city of Philadelphia. Because from our position, we're able to help nonprofits get the work done for everyone.
So you're the first
Dominican.
First Dominican. Yeah. That's a copy cool moment right there. Just want to say that. So congratulations, and even though you've been here for a minute doing that, but then you're in the history books now, right?
Yeah.
20, 30 years from now, right? Someone else taking up the time and saying that, hey, you know, who was, you know, the first Dominican state representative. So that's kind of like a powerful moment. And you stepping up, taking up a baton, right? It was kind of like, were you hesitant?
Well, you know, I ran a business for 17 years, dipped and dabbled in politics. Actually, I helped a lot of folks get elected in Philadelphia. And, you know, at first, I really didn't want to run for state rep, but I just saw it as a higher calling, right? You know, you're running a business and you're helping a lot of folks, you know, away from the business, just on a personal note, and connecting people to services and stuff like that. Then I was like, you know what, let me try this out. So I went inside my predecessor's office, did that for like a year or two, and then we decided, you know, I'll take the next step and I'll run, you know, and I'm glad I did. You know what I mean? I really like doing this. I really like helping people. I'm the type of person that, you know, I get, you know, when you help someone and that feeling you get, I don't know how to explain it, but you get that feeling like, whether they appreciate it or not, right? You feel some type of way. You're like, oh yeah, you know, I like doing that. And I got a high doing that, basically, right? So that's where I'm at now.
What was that one thing that you and your team have done? It could be the smallest thing that you were like you really felt that pride and you felt good about it.
For me, right, I introduced a bill to get the Borinquenias license plate to honor them. Yeah.
For those who don't know,
the Borinquenias was a Puerto Rican regiment that fought in battalion, right? That they fought in World War I, World War II, and the Korean War, right? You know, they were just strictly Puerto Rican, and you know, I was born in Puerto Rico, 100% Puerto Rican. My mother and my father are Puerto Rican, so that meant a lot to me. You know what I mean? To actually get them their own license plate here in Pennsylvania. So if you look it up and you Google it, you see that if you go to PennDOT's website, you see the Borinquenias license plate.
Wow.
That was José Giral.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Congratulations on it. That's awesome. Yeah. That's something in the history books too, something to talk about. You know, how did that come about, right? And these are the little things that mean a lot, right? You're making sure that they're not forgotten, right? No one's forgetting the folks that fought, right? Keeping them, how you said, you know, they live on forever. Yeah, immortal.
For me, it's what's been House Bill 1172, because I know that bill will allow so many Latino professionals to if they're working as a cab driver, if they're working at a bodega, they're working at a hair salon, they can use the profession that they had back home and put it into practice here in Pennsylvania. And that's elevated so many families to the next tier level of economic, getting a little bit closer to the American dream. That was one of the aha moments of being here in the State House, is changing policy so that people can see real results.
Amazing. No, I like that. I mean, just history in the making. I think it's the little things sometimes, and I don't even know if it's the age now, and I keep mentioning this a lot, but I'm a crier now. Like, I don't know, before I never really cried as easy, but, at the lighthouse one day I was watching kids play basketball, and then on the other side you see horses running back and forth. I started crying because of that, right? Because it's like, where do you see that, right? And it was like, because of stepping up. Yeah. And I've noticed by hearing both of your stories, and there's another conversation, I guess we always having conversations, and not that much time with Eric earlier, as we're walking in, about folks stepping in, right? Stepping up, right? Some folks say, no, I'm a background person. Some folks say, I'm this person, but you found yourself not really wanting the job, but needing to step in, right? And I feel as though the ones who have this ambition to do it never really does it right. But the ones who feel as though they need to step up are the ones who are really committing themselves to the job. If it makes sense what I'm saying, right?
It all starts by taking that first step. If you don't get involved, you're going to allow the minority of the population dictate how politics is going to play in your life. Yeah. And that's our number one enemy in our community, is that we'd rather have someone from the outside tell us who's going to be the police captain from the 25th district than helping bring up our voting numbers up so we can dictate how policies and laws are going to be implemented in our community.
Remember, if you don't vote, you let someone else make the decision for you, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If you waive your right to vote, the person that voted is making the decision for you. So that's why it's really important, to get out there and not just in the voting, but just to get involved with.
Stay involved civically.
Stay involved. There's like so many different, you could join the PDAC, right? The PDAC is, the advisory council for every district. You could be a committee person. You could be, could run for public office, right? There's plenty of open spots that come around once.
How can someone get involved with the PDAC?
Just contact whatever district you live in.
Or they can call our office.
Yeah. Call our office or contact the district.
And that's a start. That's a start to get involved.
Engagement.
So what are the qualifications to joining the PDAC?
You have to live
within that police district.
Yeah.
Or have a business within that police district.
Yeah. Some type of vested interest in that community.
I grew up in the Harding Park section of the city. My mother's first store was at 6 and Westmoreland. That's where my desire to get involved civically, from seeing police officers come in and literally beating up on someone on the block for whatever reason, or taking people's money out of their pockets. And if that person would complain, they would drop them off in South Philly without a penny. That person would have to walk back through neighborhoods where 9 times out of 10 they get beat up because they weren't supposed to be in that neighborhood. And that anger, I've turned it into action. I try not to get involved out of anger, but out of the need and the representation that my community needs. Mm-hmm. Because I don't want to see any young person grow up fearing the police or fearing the system. The system works for us, works for you, the taxpayer, the citizen. For far too long, we thought that it was the other way around. And when you come, especially immigrants, when they come from another country, they bow down to because even though they live in a democratic society, it's not really a democratic society. Their own system is used to keep people in check.
So you said 6 in Westmoreland. You grew up at 6 in Westmoreland. Who would have thought that a young man, a kid from 6 in Westmoreland, will be sitting here in the Capitol? Can you give me a fun story about your neighborhood? Something, not in drama, but something that folks could identify with. What are your biggest memories of growing up in that neighborhood?
Fresh bread that my mother would sell in the store. Café con pan con chocolate, ham and cheese that would make people come in and order, and just the sense of community, where everybody looked out for one another.
Did you ever attend we were talking about this on our last show. Did you ever attend the rec center or Fifth and Allegheny?
Yes. But I was always in Aspirante. So Aspira, before it was a charter school, it was located right out of 6th and Lehigh behind the library.
Okay.
There was the old firehouse was turned into a community building there. And that's where we would hang out for the most part.
Okay.
If I wasn't in Alny High School, or if I wasn't at Clemente or Alny High School, you could find me at my mother's store. And then maybe I could go for like an hour to Aspira.
So I was born in Puerto Rico, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my mother and I moved, single mom, moved to New York, right? And, I went to school there, right? And
What part of New York?
Brooklyn.
Okay.
Brooklyn, yeah. So, poor family. And one of the things that I actually think about when I'm serving here is that what my mother and I went through in New York, right? We were in an all Puerto Rican neighborhood. It was called Los Sudes, South Side, in Brooklyn. So it got gentrified, right? And, we had to move from one place to another, and, we lived in poverty. So it was going back and forth. And that's one of the things. When I moved back to Philly in 99, it was 99, 2000, right? I moved to Philly. I started a business, right? But one thing that got me involved, and to this day, I have it in the back of my mind that I want to defend people from our neighborhoods from getting gentrified.
You see that a lot now.
Yeah, and it's happening now. But
is that a trauma for you? Do you see that?
It is.
And
it is.
It is
like a trauma.
and
I feel like I need to be part of the defense mechanism there. Don't get me wrong. Our neighborhoods need development. We definitely need development, right? But it's got to be there got to be barriers in place to prevent people from getting displaced.
When you hear the word gentrification, you think it's another race coming in. But in real time today, it's an economic gentrification, where it's not just
different angles,
a specific group moving into a neighborhood. It's
policies in place.
Policies in place that only make it so that a certain economic class can live in that neighborhood. And I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we need to protect, especially when you talk about North Square, for example. North Square historically, in the past 40, 50
that's
years
happening now.
And in real time now is changing economically. We need to do educating our kids when it comes to basic home economics, how to protect your credit, how to protect your Second Amendment,
how to buy a home. How to, education is the key to this. You want to educate folks, you want to give them the opportunities so they can stay in their homes, right? And, we talked about like different mechanisms in place that, they make it difficult. They raise your taxes, they're building a $500,000 home, they give them a tax abatement, but meanwhile, your taxes just went up threefold, right? So how do we put mechanisms in place to protect them and let, that person that's been living there 20 years or 30 years in some cases, giving them the tools that they could weather the storm, basically.
At the end of the day, we could always try to go back to the neighborhood, how we grew up, but politics is somehow still involved around us, is interconnected of how we are raised and what we experience, but how do we preserve who we are as folks? You're from the neighborhood, you're from down the neighborhood. Folks, and I appreciate this conversation because folks are really seeing the human side of you, right? Not just the politician. You're someone who came from the neighborhood. After a hard session in Harrisburg, what are some of the meals that you miss back in the neighborhood? What are some of the things that come to your mind? When I get back home, I'm going to get me a plate of this.
Freddy's and Tony's, and eat some habichuela with pollo. Pollo. That's what there's a lot of things that you miss when you're up here. We're up here like 4 days. I come up here Sunday, right? And then go back Wednesday night, right? So those 4 days, you got to make, this is your home away from home, right?
Yeah.
So you try to make it, as homey as possible. But I do miss a lot of things when I'm up here. Just being able to go to cousin's supermarket, right? And buy something.
Sometimes it happens during session where we're like, wow, we're even here.
Yeah.
And you just go walk around this building, come back in and put your gloves back on and go knuckle again. It's challenging because especially in today's political atmosphere, we have members that look at us like we don't belong here.
There's members that call him Jose and me Danilo, and there's newspapers that put his picture up and my name and vice versa. That's done all the time. And I'm like, listen, he's a handsome
here. You got like a Husa moment.
I know we look alike, right? But
have you ever had that? I asked that question about that breaking moment, like if you want to quit. But have you had that moment where you like, I'm gonna step out the room for a minute? Because you're so emotionally invested.
Oh, it happens. It happens within our own party. It happens when you're speaking to the other side, meaning other representatives from your other political party, and it happens even sometimes when you're speaking to some department heads when we're trying to figure out what would be better for Pennsylvanians. Where because of my upbringing, because of what I know of North Philadelphia. Sometimes these policies do not have the best interests of a North Philadelphian, and then we rally. The Philadelphia delegation, state rep delegation, has been phenomenal in making sure that we get more public funding for schools, that we get the adequate funding for crime preventive programs, like the Lighthouse, for example, and other organizations. We're all in sync in with the prime goal is what's the best for Philadelphia, not just for a specific group. Yeah. And we're very fortunate from that aspect.
It goes, what's best for our districts, right? Number one. Number two is what's best for Philadelphia, right? And then step three is what's best for Pennsylvania. Sometimes they don't align, you know what I mean? So we have to, come up here and, try to come to some type of consensus of how we could, whether it's passing a bill, whether it's
reach our goals,
whether it's sending funding over, asking for funding in certain districts,
Usually in the neighborhood, when folks feel as though they want out, right? They get a certain career, a certain job, or they get out of college and they move out.
Yeah,
Is there a strategy, and it's not just on you guys, but just for us as a village, is there a strategy to keep folks home?
Guy, is raised in North Philly, goes to school in North Philly, but he gets a job. The first thing he does, he goes up to the Northeast, or he goes South Philly, or he even leaves out of the city, right? The only way to combat that is to create opportunities right there and then, and to make sure you keep people there. And how do you do that? Kids want to start families, right? You have to, provide funding for parks, right? Just like, Lighthouse, great field, right? You brought it up a whole lot. 10 years ago, nobody wanted to go to Lighthouse. Now, you're turning people back, right? Yeah. So that's the perfect example. You have to create, opportunities in our district, our respected districts in the city, and build the community through parks, St. Christopher's Hospital, different organizations that help build that community.
No. Thank you for sharing that. It's because I look at the neighborhood. We come from a beautiful neighborhood. I grew up down there. Not to put Eric and Abigail out there, but I really respect and appreciate them because they could have been anywhere else, and I noticed that they chose to stay in the community, right? Not just chose to stay in the community, but not just be in the community, but also looking at different parts of the community. Hey, Fifth Street. How can we bring Fifth Street back? The Bloco de Oro, right? And I was like, wow. I remember, everybody remember that little golden, walkway, and you ran it too as a kid? Did you run it?
Everybody did.
Sometimes you have to reinvent neighborhoods too, right? Fifth Street, I don't know if the retail is ever going to come back because now people shop differently, right? Yeah. They online, but maybe we could bring restaurants.
I always thought about Fifth Street, for me as a visionary, right? When I look at Chinatown, when I look at certain neighborhoods or in the district, when tourism comes, that trolley takes folks through certain areas, right? But I always envisioned that trolley coming down through Fifth Street, where it's looking like a old San Juan, right? And folks are out there selling their dominoes, their domino tables, the foods, their artwork. Like there is an opportunity for what type of shops that will be out there, right? Things that you can't experience online. You can't experience that piragua, being made in front of you, or those pinchos, being, on the grill right there. I've always envisioned and dreamt for something like that, to be that golden block. Like if you hit Philadelphia, you must go down to that area, right? And drive by.
Just like when you go to Puerto Rico, you got La Plaza de Santurce, right? Like that's unique, right? You want Fifth Street to be just like that. Like, okay, if I go to Philly, oh man, I know they got a Puerto Rican community, I got to go to Fifth Street. That's what you want to feel, right? Yeah. And that's the message you want to get out and have people, come to our community and, and talk about it, right?
Yeah. No, one of the things that, in conversation with Councilman Lozada, it's and ASE, which is the organization responsible for the corridor. The corridor. Thank you. There's a planning for a food truck park. There's planning for an anchor business down at the northern part of Fish Street, Golden Block, and working closer with the business owners, the building owners, to make that corridor more attractive to different type of business. What I've been asking them is to we can look at what are the new trends, right? Like what can we bring onto Fifth Street that will bring also the foot traffic? Yeah. Whether it's through an education platform, I'm pretty big on esports and tech. Like, what are the programs that we bring on Fifth Street to bring in a different?
Are there any meetings being held where the public could come on out and be a part, like committees, or not yet?
Very early. It's coming soon.
What's happening now on 3rd Street? ASE is working on a big project there to have the food trucks and a little amphitheater there.
3rd in Indiana.
3rd in Indiana, yeah.
Oh, 3rd in Indiana.
Yeah, that's happening in real time right now. And I think they're doing the groundbreaking soon, right?
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. I have to see that.
Like our roles as a state legislator is basically at times bring the funding back to Philly, right? When you go to most of these big projects, right, a lot of them are funded by the state. So we're up here fighting to bring dollars back so they can do their projects. You know what I mean? And that goes into parks, it goes into affordable housing, and so on and so on. So that's one of our roles here. You know what I mean?
Because one thing I did notice, like, in the Lighthouse, we put little shops there. We have a little small, we call the Village Ave, a little business district, little pop-up shops. And you have someone who does permanent jewelry, which I never heard of, but now I know about it. But they have a clientele, right? She has a clientele, so she has a little style. Someone who makes dominoes tables, someone who does flans and cakes.
The baking, yeah.
The baking. Someone who sells cigars.
Which, by the way, are very good.
The cigars?
Tres leche.
Oh, tres leche. Yeah. Them things are addictive, man. Well, we talking about health, but it's
I'll take your word for it. Yeah.
It's so good.
I hate the fact that I'm forgetting the lady's name right now.
Priscilla.
Thank you.
She was on our show. Also, big shout out to Priscilla Occasions and her husband. They work hard. It's a dynamic duo. Just to see a married couple just get into the business together and go all out and take that leap of faith. So, we have Monica who has cigars at the spot. And, we have a couple other folks that are coming in. But my dream and the vision is for those, that should be a starter, right? Then you should be able to that brick and mortar, like a Fifth Street or Front Street, those corridors, and let that be that incubator where you start off. Folks get to know who you are, and you can move on to the bigger things
and grow.
And grow. I mean, there's so much beauty in our community. There's so much, I just hate when the little negative things take off and overshadow.
See, like talking about negative, like Kensington, right? Kensington, me and Danilo, I got the bulk of it, but Danilo has a good part of it too. And, that's a perfect example of how things are turning back, but nobody's talking about that, right? Right now you go down Kensington, listen, it's not where we want it to be, but it's going in the right direction. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's where we as leaders, right? We have to make sure that we don't, when the opportunities come about, because they're coming, that Latinos, are part of that discussion. You know what I mean? Because what will happen is that once they clean it completely out, and it's almost there, it's going in the right direction. They're cleaning folks out. we get the first opportunities, because what will happen? Other, communities will come, and that's their start. I represent, I don't represent a lot of Fifth Street. Danilo has the bulk of Fifth Street. I have like a little section by Esperanza. But, the Bloque de Oro is Burgos is district, But I go down to like Armingo Avenue, So this is the way the community is moving. It's being pushed out of, obviously Norris Square is being pushed out of there. But, everybody's moving up north. They even going to Frankfurt. I think Frankfurt is an area where it's predominantly Latino right now.
Yeah, Frankfurt and the Oxford area.
But these are places where we could have those visions, right? And start having conversations to try to get development there. And folks that normally would go somewhere else to start a business, we wanted to start a business in the community, right?
Why not? Because everybody else is starting one in the community, and why can't we? I think this is the importance of having these conversations at this table. I really love this component right now, talking about how can we work together. So folks who are watching this, you really need to stay in tune, not just with the show and our state representatives, but being in tune to what's going on, what are the moves, what are, Danilo mentioned their talks about Fifth Street. That's exciting. You mentioned Third and Indy. That's, to me, I'm like, Third and Indy. Who would have thought, right? Because there was a book on Third and Indy. Now there's something new and positive. I want to be able to wrap up a little bit, but I just want to give my own sentiment to this today. It really is an honor to be here with both of you. See, I'm getting old. Try not to get emotional a little bit too much, but it really is. We finally get to sit down and talk at this table, because every time you're on the go, I'm on the go. We're passing each other in traffic, literally in the car, people on horn. You're like, hey, did you get? I'm like, yo, and that's our conversations, literally like in the cars. But I see you. I see what you're doing, and I see. And this here, not only that, took the state rep hat off and allowed you to be a human being again, and folks can understand that you come from this neighborhood, right? And the importance of representation. So I want to thank you for representing and fighting, because you're in the arena, and both of you, man, you're in the arena of, it's no joke to take these punches. And then not only that, you come in here, you got to fight. And then when you go down to your community, people are picking on somebody down there, and then there's another fight that you're getting involved with. Danilo, I think from walking, even before state rep days, we were in the neighborhoods cleaning up with a broom and dustpan, joking around, laughing, and cleaning up the neighborhoods. I would never imagine, I'm not surprised you're here, but I would never imagine we will be sitting here in the Capitol having these conversations. So goes to show you, man, how life could take a turn for the good, for the positive. And I'm just grateful to have both of you out there fighting. And
thank you. We're fortunate to have you on the nonprofit side that turned in our best kept secret in North Philadelphia, which is the Lighthouse Field, and the community office center over at Somerset and Masher. And to the beacons of hope that the organization was set up to be from day one, from when it started years ago. And I love the fact that you kept the history behind it, right? It's visible, it's present.
The oldest nonprofit in Philadelphia, 1893.
And now, and thanks to you and your team, it's living up to its expectations of our community, and provided a whole different atmosphere of what community engagement looks like for other organizations, which is not just what's going on within the Lighthouse, but a collective community, not just in silos, which is what's customary to be done in our community.
No, thank you. And just want to say that July will be going on 5 years since I stepped into that role. And when I stepped in, it was maybe for the community side, for programs, maybe 12 families registered, 8 if that. We're up to over 15,000 families registered throughout Philadelphia, outskirts of Bensalem, and County, and outside. So proud of the team. Thank you.
I applaud you. You know what I mean? You've done a lot of good work there. And this show is great. It gives people a place to go and learn new things. You know what I mean? That's going on in the community. So I applaud you on this.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
We have to get
This
to
was
the floor.
fun.
So can you go?
No. I want to finish this game.
I won. This is Edwin Desamour, another episode of the Domino Dialogues. The end of this conversation should be the beginning of your conversation at home. Thank you for tuning in.